Okay, we are now live. Y'all missed the beer nonsense they were doing in the background just now. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Bashment Book Club Live for Dear Haiti, Love Alaine. I finished this book on Sunday, on time, I will say. I basically rush read it on Saturday evening in like 5 hours. And it was the most interesting experience because I felt like I didn't jive with the beginning, but then as the day went on, I started getting into it more. So I'm going to let the others introduce themselves since we're on my channel, and I'm going to get them to tell me what their initial thoughts are for the book.
Hello, I'm Linnell, the Weekend Reader. And I finished this on Sunday, right before the time frame.
Sad is gone. He's like, I feel called
out. So I thought it was gonna be a light, fluffy YA. It was not. It had some good moments in terms of like comedic, like, oh, that's funny. Oh yeah, but it was more than that.
Yep. Sarah?
Hi, my name is Sajid. I'm from the channel Books in My Social Life. Every time I try to read like a light-hearted YA contemporary novel, something always happens that's like really heavy and dark. And like this book just took heavy and dark and took it to a whole new level, whilst also being light-hearted at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how she did that, how they did that, sorry, because it's two people who wrote it. I finished this book today, approximately 5 minutes ago, and that was the reason why we had to postpone it from Sunday to Tuesday. So here we are.
But the point is, we finished it.
Exactly.
And we're doing this show now.
And because we finished it, and since you were the one that finished it the quickest, today I need you to give us the synopsis because it's freshest in your brain. So here we go.
What's this book about again?
Okay. Oh my god.
Okay. So basically, like, I went into this book blindly, so I didn't know a single thing. I didn't read the summary, so I genuinely didn't know what to expect when I went into it. So I recommend everybody going into it like that. So all I'll say is that this is a story about a girl named Alaine, who is Haitian American. Her parents are like these really rich people. They're divorced. Her mother is like the super duper famous reporter for GNN. And her dad is a psychiatrist, and she lives with her dad, and she kind of has like a complicated relationship with her mother because they're not really close as she would like to be. But then an incident happened which involves her mother, and Alaine ends up having to go back to Haiti with her mother for a couple months, and the story kind of takes off from there. And while she's in Haiti, she begins to learn a lot of unsettling truths about her family's past, and the story it takes lots of turns. There's a lot of stuff going on in here. So yeah, I hope that's a good summary.
No, it was beautiful.
So first up, like the most important question I think about this book is how was the format for you guys? Because it's epistolary, so it's a lot of like letters and emails and like text messages. So how did that work for you guys, like going into the book?
Well, for me, I think it was helpful to use the text message versus the letters or postcards, because I think like as a reader, you had to shift your brain in terms of how the communication, like why would you put this kind of information and say like a text message versus a letter? So it felt like a really authentic experience in terms of like relaying information.
Yeah, I feel like that was the only way that it would have made sense, because later in the book we get access to her mom's perspective for something that's happened in the past, and I feel like that just made everything flow easily because you didn't question the fact that you were getting something told from the first person, from a different person in the book.
Right.
So I feel like it set up everything really well, but I think in the beginning for me that's what made it sort of jarring, because she has a very young voice, like the narrator, and the way she talks felt very much like it removed it for me, because I just read The Glass of Tell like right before, and it's two very different writing styles. So it took a minute for me to be like, okay, this is a me problem. I'm like putting too much onto this narration style. Like, I want it to be more, and this is what it's supposed to be. And then once I let go and she got to Jamaica, that's when it, not Jamaica, to Haiti, that's when it really like landed for me.
I think in the beginning it slowed me down because I felt like I was reading the letters slower and then the regular text faster. But once I realized like this was just going to be the format, it was fine.
I loved it. I really loved it because it got me to zoom through the book a lot faster, especially as somebody who started the book a little bit later than I should have. I really appreciated that. And it was very dynamic. It made for a very dynamic reading experience. It's a very long story and a lot happens in it. So I think the decision to make it so epistolary and such a mix-up kind of format was helpful for a long book to be more engaging, especially for something that is a YA novel and that is aimed at a younger audience. I don't know if you all have ever read Where'd You Go, Bernadette by Maria Sample.
I started it, but then
if you've ever read that book, this book reminds me 100% of that. The format is the same. The personality of the main character is very much the same. And they both have very strained relationships with their mothers who are suffering from some sort of mental illness. In Where'd You Go, Bernadette's case, her mother, Bernadette, was suffering with extreme anxiety. And in this novel, I mean, I don't know if it's a spoiler at this point. So, I mean, if you haven't read the book, then, be wary. But basically, the mother in this book has early onset Alzheimer's. So just the element of travel as well, all of those things very much reminded me of Where'd You Go, Bernadette. So for anybody who might be watching the live stream, who has read that book and really liked it, I think this is a book that. What is wrong with it? This is a book I'd recommend. This thing
yeah.
I love it. I feel like the one thing that was both like a benefit, but also it hindered me at some places was like the time jumping, because like it helped because like you just ended up at the next place. Like you never like had to go through the in-between bits. But I felt like, especially when we were trying to figure out what happened with the presentation, like what did she do that was so bad that got her time? That frustrated me because I really wanted to know. And it took like a couple more pages to find out how did she do that cake. I am so confused.
Yeah.
The same thing happened when she went to the lady's house to do the little spell or whatever.
Yes.
She drank the tea and she passed out, and then I was expecting the next like chapter to pick up from there, and she went to something else, and I'm like, and then like 10 or 15 pages later, she was like, I haven't forgotten to tell you all about the da 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 da, and I'm like,
yeah. In that way, it felt like potentially a page out of a journal, like you're writing down your thoughts, and I was like, oh, let me not forget to go back to this point. But it was very jarring.
Yeah. What did you guys think of the character? I sort of described like her narrative voice, but I was watching a video with the authors, and they said they were actually inspired by Yara's from Grownish. They were inspired by her tone of voice in that show, and that's sort of what they were trying to emulate when they were writing. So what did you guys think of Alaine as our protagonist?
So I definitely... Oh, go ahead.
I love how we always do that.
I was like, wait, who's going to reply?
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say,
in your mind.
I really liked it because it was very funny. She was very funny. Like at one point she was trying to talk about how she really likes Rosaline or something. And she was saying something along the lines of, sure, she's a little bit eccentric and yeah, she could maybe blink a little bit more.
She was wild.
But you know what I think? Like, am I going to age myself by saying this? But when like Dawson's Creek, there was a critique that they didn't sound like their age, right? I felt like this is definitely, the voice sounded like a Caribbean kid who was raised to be like a lady, and this is how you conduct yourself, but you're a little bit quirky. And so certain people get to see that part of you, like when you're interacting with friends or when you don't have to be a little bit more performative with your family. So I felt like it felt real. Like I could hear like a 17-year-old version of myself saying some of that stuff. Like what did she say when she was like trying to say that she liked the guy and it came out all wrong? Like in the cafeteria. Do you remember?
No.
But anyway, that part I remember thinking, yeah, this is funny.
Oh my
And I
god.
liked it.
Gagged at how the gelatin from the pig flew on the guy with the allergy.
I want to know how she did that. Honestly,
Exactly.
can we get like a author epilogue with like the ingredients
I
and the
want to know
statement?
why she did that. Like, why?
Was it?
Honestly,
I thought it was because of what the teacher gave her in terms of feedback. So she's like, "Oh, you're not taking this seriously," and she's like, "Oh, I'm going to show you. I'm gonna go over the top."
I
it
mean,
was like that mixed. It was like that mixed with the girl. I can't remember her name, but the girl that was antagonizing her kept antagonizing her like after the fact, and she just was like, "I'm gonna do like the most extra thing."
Yo, the
And
one with the
next level.
dad and the
That did
conflict
the
resolution.
yeah.
Yeah.
honestly, I hated her. Oh my god, I want to like throw the book.
Well,
Truly.
you always have to have a nemesis, right? Especially in high school. You no
Okay. Let's
no
talk
in
about
high.
the other characters. So first we get the characters that are in high school with her and her parents. Like we get all of the people who are in the US who live in Florida with her. She lives in Florida, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
South Florida. Yeah.
So we get that side and then we get her family in Haiti. So let's talk about like the people in the US first. What did you think of her parents? And what did you think of the like secondary characters we got, like her best friend? And that's the only other person I really remember from the US. So
There was the best friend, the guy she had a crush on.
did she
And
have a crush on him or did he have a crush on her?
what's the difference?
He had a crush on her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But I
And she
mean,
had him with algebra.
Yeah, and then she
yeah.
tried to kill him
Yeah.
later on, but
His
And
life
then
after
her nemesis.
almost killed him, so there was that. She went in his bag and got his tablet.
oh yeah, the EpiPen.
Yeah.
So to me, those characters were like fleeting a little bit. Like I knew they were there, but I think as a reader, you got more invested in the side characters on the island. Because not only was she exploring the island through new eyes, they had similar experiences. Like, what's the intern's name? He's also Haitian American, so they had like similar experiences, and trying to navigate maybe having some of those things, similar things. And then the last two, his cousin and
Her
her
cousin.
cousin came in at the last minute. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
do we care about them? But the cousin was funny, so yeah.
Yeah.
I would say I agree. I didn't really care much about a lot of the side characters. Some of them just kind of came in at some point randomly, and then they were important. Like Tony. No offense, bless his soul, rest in peace. Whatever. But like, he kind of came in halfway through the book, and he was just. I feel like they just needed somebody to die, and they didn't want to kill off one of the other characters who you just wanted to be attached to. So they just was like, well, let's make him the descendant of the one ancestor who descended to die.
But to me, that it made sense for him to die, though, right? Because their family. I mean, I felt like they had to connect the dots a little bit, but I felt like if you are exposed to like Obia or Voodoo, like you understand like history, like family curses and how to break them, and like it just made sense because they had that kind of crossover. But unless Alaine said it or Rosaline said it, I would not have put the two together that he was a down
whatever
the road.
it was.
Yeah.
The family line. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was I the only one that was shook when he died? I literally had to like pause and make dinner.
Turn over.
I saw it coming because I remember when they were about to leave the boat, the sky was clear, but he said that he sensed a storm coming, and everybody was like, what do you mean? And I was like, why does he sense a storm coming? And before that, I noticed like he went missing for a little bit, and they couldn't find
Wasn't he
it.
selling the peanuts?
I don't know what he was doing. So I don't know if he was telling the peanuts or like they were looking for him but they couldn't find him. And
Mhm.
part of me was like, what if he went somewhere and like died and then he
Yeah.
came back?
Oh.
But then when he sent this storm, well, you know the moment he said there might be a storm and everybody doubted him, you know that there was definitely going to be
Yeah.
a storm.
Yeah.
And the way that they were kind of missing him before, I just got this sense that he wasn't going to make it. And something terrible had to happen with that storm. So when he died, I was like,
Mhm.
I knew it. I knew he was gonna die.
It was still
But
sad. I was still sad.
I didn't know that he would end up being the descendant of the person of the
Mhm.
historical figure who who needed to die in order for the curse to be broken. I didn't know that was the case. But as we are on the topic of like the Obia and whatnot, I'm a little bit confused.
Mhm.
Um, Rosaline did end up marrying into the family, right? Like she married
Mhm.
her relatives. So that means that she was trying to make it seem like if she was going to uplift the curse for everybody in the family, but she
Mhm.
only really wanted to uplift the curse for her child.
Mhm.
So I was
I feel
wondering,
like she had to like break it for everybody in order for her child
To be under.
to be broken. But she
So
just didn't tell Alaine that somebody
the
had to
full
die in
story.
order for that to happen because she knew
Yeah.
Alaine wouldn't do that.
right?
But what
But
I didn't understand is at what point did the family curse happen? Was it when they were digging up the stuff as children? And what's the
no,
aunt's
it
name
was
who
long
lost the
before
baby?
that.
It
It
was
was long
before that.
before it was their ancestors. So it
Mhm.
was Henri Christophe's wife
Mm.
who went to
Mhm.
Britain and she wanted to come back to Haiti. And then the other
Mhm.
lady told her, well, if you want to come back, you need to marry this person who I want you to marry and spy on him or something. And I think when she came back, she didn't end up doing that. So the other woman was angry and she was the one who cast the curse on her and all of her descendants.
Got it.
Mhm. Yeah, she was
Mhm.
supposed to marry him, spy on him, and then eventually like kill him because he was trying to revolt against the new king slash president. But she fell in love with him. So she was like, nah, I'm not gonna kill him. I threw away my poison, I threw
Right,
away my
right.
knife, like
Mhm.
whatever. So did you guys like about the Obeah and Voodoo? So like how did you guys feel about the representation of that in the book? For me, I was sort of worried for people who didn't come into it with like sort of context of like the Caribbean and
Mhm.
like magic, and
Mhm.
wondered if it would sort of not emphasize but like legitimize like the whole stereotype people have of Haiti and voodoo and the
Mhm.
connection between them. Do you think it was actually a curse, or was it just the belief that a curse existed because obviously her mom still has
Yeah,
the
dementia. Yeah.
Alzheimer's? Yeah.
I think I don't know what honestly it is because part of me believes that it is the curse. Part of me
Mhm.
believes that it's not, like it's just coincidental because I mean the curse was supposedly broken in the end, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
So why does she still have Alzheimer's? Maybe at the end of the day she just has Alzheimer's, or maybe the
Mhm.
curse is such that it's a preventative thing. So you need to break the curse before something happens. So the
Mm.
Yeah.
curse will be broken for the child because the child is born and nothing will happen to them, but
Mhm.
with Celeste, it was too late already. She already got Alzheimer's. But I liked it because it kind of made it in such a way where, in real life, everybody is, well, at least most people are at that kind of like, yeah, in that in between where it's like you believe in something bigger, but you also kind of don't, or your belief in it is very limited and you don't know what to believe and you don't know whether it's real or not. And I think that this book didn't really want to shove one perspective in the reader's face. I think the book wanted to say, if you're the kind of person who believes that these things don't exist, you could read this book and interpret it like that. But if you're
Mhm.
the kind of person who does believe that, you could read this book and interpret it as that as well. Because remember when the grandfather died, they thought, okay, that was the curse that killed him.
Right.
And then
Mhm.
Mhm.
like, oh, he lives on a diet of cigarettes, rum, and fried pork, right? So it's,
Yeah.
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
not surprising that he died because he didn't take care of himself. So it's, I like that it kind of did, I like that it kind of addressed that nuance. Like you don't know as a reader, even after you're reading, whether the curse was real or not. As
Mhm.
to the representation of it, I can't really speak to like whether the representation was good because I don't know much about voodoo myself and whatnot,
Mhm.
or obia or whatever. I think I think that it's good that if they portrayed it in a very honest way, I think that it's good because at the end of the day, once there's any kind of depiction of voodoo and obia, any Western person coming into it will have their stereotypes and will have their biases and whatnot, and
Yeah.
you don't need to like shape it in a particular way where it needs to be palatable to those people, where you need to explain to them, well, this is not actually evil. It's really just a religion. It's really just a belief. You could represent it in its most nuanced and raw form without having to like put it in a neat way. I think so.
Yeah. Did we lose? I think we did. Okay. Yeah, I mean, to me, if I agree with Sajid in the sense of you could be in a camp where you could believe that, these things are part of the curse or not, because not everything.
That was the best return I've ever seen. Oh my gosh.
What was I saying last?
You were talking about the curse and like how like it doesn't really matter if it was real or not, and that we can't really like palatize like our like beliefs for people and like the worry of their stereotypes being.
Oh, right. Yeah. That's basically what I was trying to get.
I think
Nice.
if it didn't have a little bit of that in the story, I would feel like something was missing, right? Because I, as a grown-up who is a devout Christian, still do things like, if you sweep my foot, you gotta unsweep it. Or, I won't do certain things when it's that time of the month. So even though I know that this is like a part of, like, I always collect my hair. I don't like leave any strands anywhere. Like, as a grown-up, you know what I mean? I still believe in certain parts of what I guess an outsider would believe would be voodoo or obia, but it's steeped in my culture, right? And whether it's true or not, is a safety or a comfort for me because it was taught, right? And my mom would probably have a story of, well, my cousin so and so and so and so didn't do it, and look at her now, and it's like, it's true. So it's just for the safety precautions. Let me collect my hair and flush them down the toilet.
You say that, and I'm like thinking of all the hair that is around my house right now that I've just let like go free.
But you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's like those little things that.
Or don't pick up anything on the side of the road, like any random thing you see on the side of the road.
Oh, I never touch anything. I'm like, it's cursed.
You don't know what somebody put on it. So
yeah, or don't ever walk out the door backwards. Like there are all of these like superstitions that might not make sense to an outsider, but because it's been taught or ingrained in you, like it just becomes a part of the way you navigate life. And I think just like any other structure or system, if it brings you comfort and there's no harm, then why not celebrate it or acknowledge it at a minimum?
So like she started believing about it more obviously when she was in Haiti, and she saw the way like her entire family sort of like got behind it, and they would just use it as an excuse, like, oh, I stubbed my toe, it was the curse.
Right.
So how did you guys feel about the fact that she was sent there in the first place as a punishment for acting up in class? And like it was mentioned in the book too, like because she has a friend who's also Haitian American, and it was mentioned like, oh, our parents always like threaten it as a punishment, you're going to be sent back to the island. So what did you guys feel about like that part of the book?
I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I've never been an immigrant, so I don't know many immigrants, so I don't know like what the whole culture of like sending you back to the island or sending you back to the homeland is. I mean, I have nowhere to be sent back to. I'm already here, so it's like, I don't know. But I guess it's like a matter of, I guess you I guess the parents might have a perception of what their country is or what their country was when they left it, and there's more. It's more conservative. It's more. You need to be more respectable. You need to be this. You need to be that. Oftentimes, especially in poorer countries, you'd learn more lessons about valuing money and all that kind of stuff. So maybe some parents feel like, let me send my child back to Jamaica or Haiti or wherever, Trinidad or wherever, because they'll learn those lessons that they're not necessarily learning in America, because there's the perception that America makes you spoiled and fat and all of these different things, like, when, yeah.
It definitely hit me a little like it stung because I remember it was the opposite of way for us. Like, we'll send you away to America if you don't behave. And that eventually did happen. My
You're like,
mom
look
sent
at me
me.
now.
I mean, don't follow in my footsteps, but but it was the opposite of way for us, because America was this land of like excess, and you were going to lose, coming from the Virgin Islands, because, everybody only knows Jamaica, right? And so it was like that kind of punishment to think like you wouldn't be around things that and people who understand or knows your family history. Like, I couldn't do anything in the streets because somebody would know my mother or my aunt, because my aunts taught in schools. And so my mom would always be like, who going to take care of you when you go, you know what I mean? And so when I heard it the other way around, I was like, oh, what is this saying about the place that your parents came up from? And that's where your roots are, right? To see that country as a punishment. But I think later on in the book, it was a punishment for the father, because there was some like bad feelings of where his roots were from, not so much the mom, because they came from money. What I appreciated though is having like this dual perspective on, you can come from the same place and have two vastly different experiences.
Yeah,
so
and
I appreciated that.
Yeah, I feel like part of it wasn't even like it was a punishment. It was like you think you know about this place. So let's send you here so you actually can learn what it's like, because you're so far removed from it. Because she mentioned that they did want to go on trips, but I think it was the mom that didn't want to go back. And we learned why later on. Like, she had a relationship with her family, and that's why they never went back. So I feel like almost it was like a way for her to connect with her roots, because clearly she was taking everything too lightly when she did the whole pig blood spilling across and almost killing her fellow classmate. So what did you guys think about like the class disparity? Because like you mentioned, the mom is like from the richer, like she has a richer family, and then the dad obviously came from like a poor like household, like neighborhood situation, which we do get. Sadra just left us completely. So what did you think, Lana?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because that's so true. There's not like an in-between in the Caribbean, in my opinion. Like, you're either poor or you have money. No in between. There's no such thing as a middle class. And so, but you never mix, or if you mix, it's only temporary or because you need to fix something, right? And so I thought it was really important to again show Haiti in these two different perspectives, because if you're rich, you have a good life, you have access to this, healthcare. I thought it was really good that they pointed out that it was, they had indentures. Well, they call them slaves, right? They had people working in the house, and so I thought it was really important to like show these two vastly different worlds. But I don't quite remember how Jewel got in with the rich family, but God bless him.
I think he
I think you're echoing, Saj.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh no. Listen, I can't do this. Am I still echoing?
I'm scared to say anything.
Oh my God.
Okay, you're good now.
I'm good?
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, you're good.
Okay, good. Okay, great. I was gonna say I think the father got involved because he went to the Citadel and he met Alaine and whatnot, and they kind of like made friends from there, and then they went through that whole traumatic thing in the forest and whatnot. So he kind of, and then he said that he kind of had to hide a lot of his upbringing to Celeste because he was ashamed of it, and that's how he just kind of ended up like working and chasing his dream and kind of forgetting where he came from, and that's how he ended up being rich and getting involved with the
But
rich
Jules
people.
is the one that stuttered, right? So if the curse lifted for him, right?
I don't think he was ever cursed. I think he just had a stutter, and he got over it because I think it's that kind of situation where is it really the magic or is it just because you could interpret it as the whole situation traumatized him enough to become a little bit more confident or something like that, which caused him to get rid of his stutter. Or maybe he did wish for the stutter to go and the magic or the spirits or whatnot allowed him to get rid of the stutter. So that's another example of why I think the book does a good job at talking about it, because it gives you the option as a reader of entertaining both ideas.
Yeah. They
Jules
also
is the dad, right?
yes, Jules is that.
Okay.
Yeah.
They also sort of like talk about how countries are sort of like they make smaller countries indebted to them. So they're talking about like the rice with the American like sending rice over to different countries. So I thought that was really interesting.
Dropped in commentary and didn't even, shy away from it. I thought that was brilliant. Because it's true. America, and I'm an American citizen, so I'm going to say this with my full chest. Sometimes, most times, all the time, America puts themselves in situations where countries have to rely on them, and they exploit the resources and make them poor. And
that's how America became America in the first place.
That's how I became an American, right? First place, because they needed, yes.
They came and took you all from, who was it, Denmark? They were like, Denmark, can I have that?
And I feel like they also, I really like the way they explored the revolution happening in Haiti, because like that's like the one thing, like the first thing you learn about when you're learning about like slavery and how it was everybody was emancipated in the Caribbean. You learn about Haiti first because they were the first people to successfully have a revolt. So what did you guys think about like the representation of like ancestry and the idea of like the actions people have like way back in the past? Are we indebted to like the actions? Like, should we have to pay for the choices that our like forefathers have made? Because that's ultimately why Tony dies.
Who dies?
Tony. Peanut Man.
Oh, Tony. Yeah.
I think it's in the sense that you should be indebted, like you should die from a curse because of it. I don't know about that, but like in terms of like if you benefit from your ancestors doing bad things or doing things that put other people in jeopardy, like so if you're like a white person in America or something, or if you are a wealthy person of color from the Caribbean who descend from a long line of wealthy people. So, if you are a descendant of ancestors who have procured their wealth and their glory in a way that is unfair and in a way that was exploitative to other people, I don't necessarily say that you deserve to die or be punished, but you need to hold yourself accountable and understand yourself in relation to other people and not just live in denial, kind of like Felicity and Mark were, because they were talking about how they're trying not to think about the poverty in Haiti because they, as individuals, they can't really do a lot about it. So it's either they wallow in guilt all day or they just kind of like not think about it. And I understand where they're coming from, but I also feel like, you're never really going to fully appreciate what you have, or not just appreciate what you have, but like be able to work towards a better society unless you acknowledge like what you've gained from your history is unfair, and you need to find ways to undo that in a way that doesn't necessarily like throw yourself off a cliff or something, or like make your life miserable. But like, how do you hold yourself accountable, even though it's not your fault, even though it was based on decisions that people made before you?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that like the perfect definition of privilege though? Like you get to navigate what you want to in the struggle. And I think those two are really good examples of like, I don't need to think about that because one, it doesn't impact me and it's stressful versus the family that her dad visited. They're living in it and they're trying to figure out how to navigate it. And I thought too, it was really interesting because I felt like there was maybe a bit of a dig in terms of missionary organizations coming in and creating another kind of structure for people to rely on them. And if that structure isn't there anymore, then there's not a backup plan. And
Mm-hmm.
so and I say that knowing that I sponsor a kid in Africa, right? And every time I'm renegotiating my finances, I'm like, but if I stop donating, like I made a commitment until 18, I started sponsoring this child at 6. Like I have a 12-year commitment.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other system to support them. College is expensive. What if, she has a kid? You know what I mean? And so I thought that that was another way to say these income disparities, again, is because the country isn't structurally set up to be economic dependent.
And I also felt like it really portrayed like the levels of privilege people have because ultimately Elaine's like the most privileged and also the intern because they like her cousin said they get to go back to America eventually. Like they get to escape all of this. Felicity and the other cousin could go for university, but ultimately they still have to return and they go back to their level of privilege on Haiti as being like part of like the class that has more money, but like the guilt as well with it. So it was like the levels of privilege that are present versus like if you live on the island and you're wealthy versus if you get to go overseas and like study somewhere else and escape and like learn new things. So I thought that that was really interesting too, that she managed to weave that in along with everything else.
Yeah, there was a lot they packed into the 400 and so pages. A lot.
Mm-hmm. And we haven't even touched on like the parents yet. We haven't touched on her mom and her condition. So what did you guys think of like the complex relationships and with families in general and the parents? Because it felt like every parent child relationship, especially with Celeste and her family, was like fraught, and the only like really like true like through line was Jules and Alaine and like their relationship with each other.
I liked this book. It was very different from a lot of YA books because usually YA books, the friends are the main side characters in the story, and the parents, who are usually seen as the people you can't really relate to, you can't see yourselves in. They're like they're just like in the periphery. They're very peripheral to this story. But I liked how the family in this book were the side characters. None of the other friend side characters, even Jason and whoever else, Tatiana, they weren't as important as her parents, her aunt, Rosaline, even Andres and stuff like that as the kind of antagonist person. So I like that they serve like a good side character roles in the story. Like they were the side characters, the family were the side characters, and they were relatable as young adults too, because there was a good portion of the novel where we actually got to see them as young adults. So we actually got to see them in a way that would be relatable to the target audience of the book. So I think that was a really smart decision on the part of the authors too, because I think part of the reason why maybe parents and adults don't get to be side characters in YA novels is because they're a little bit distant from the readership. But if you could have a flashback and sort of ground them in that reality of being a young adult and being young once and kind of connecting that to their present, I think that was a really good idea to make the characters a little bit more relatable to the target audience as adults,
I was just thinking like, and this is probably laced with a little bit of privilege, but in my mind, a lot of Caribbean families are that involved or are that like, oh, you don't speak to your mother, so you have a really close relationship with your aunt or your uncle or someone else, like someone naturally fills in that role. But I thought it was really interesting that the father-daughter relationship was that close. I thought you don't get to see that a lot in storytelling. And so I thought it kind of made the story special because he was like a neutralizer. Like she would go off and do something, wonky, and then he would try and use his psychology or psychiatry techniques on her. But he never spoke poorly about his ex-wife. And I thought that was really an interesting choice. And I was rooting for them silently to get back together.
I liked how he wasn't very hyper masculine as a dad.
Yeah.
He was very in touch with his emotions. He wasn't toxic at all. Like, there's a tendency to portray, especially like Caribbean dads, as like, a little bit distant and toxic and whatnot. But he was really, really sweet. Like, he was such a nice person. Like, I really liked him.
Very refreshing.
As for what you were saying about the parents getting back together, I was hoping that it wouldn't happen, even though I kind of saw it potentially maybe happening. Because I feel like that would have been a little bit too wish fulfillment. Parents come back together in the end after all these things. I thought it was more realistic.
They left it open, so you don't really know.
Yeah, that could be a reality too.
As the child of divorce, I was like, okay, this is like too much. This is like next level. If the parents get back together, it would be like good if they were just like on friendly terms, because I feel like that is also something we don't often see, is either like the parents are divorced and they hate each other, or they end up back together again. Those are the two like dramas we always see. But I felt like the relationship Alaine had with her parents sort of reflected the relationship the parents also had with their parents. Because like Drew said, his parents like gave up everything, made sure they paid for him to go to school, like put him like above everything else. And you could see he was doing that with his daughter as well. Like he was always there. And like no matter what he wanted to do, he made sure like she was taken care of. And then on the other side, we see Celeste, who like wanted to escape like her family and wanted to like be successful. Like that was her main goal. And she obviously did succeed that, but at the cost of like her familial relationships, because like she also lost touch with her sister and all that other stuff too. So I felt like it was just like showing like how our choices continually like impact the generation after us as well. Like even if we don't mean for it to happen, it still happens like unconsciously. Yeah.
Let's talk about Miss Estelle and her scandal.
Oh my god. Clearly you need to talk about it, so go.
Ma'am, are you doing the business at the wedding? How dare you? You don't need to talk about it.
Oh my god, it was so funny. I love like seeing the hashtags and seeing what people were like.
Such a Caribbean thing. It's too many words.
Just learn that.
But you know what I thought was really interesting is that most people, if you aren't familiar with Haiti, you expect them to speak French Creole. But Andres, right? He was Dominican, so he spoke Spanish. And so I wonder if people aren't up on geography, if they would have caught Haiti and DR share land.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, I like this because Estelle spoke Spanish too, right? Somebody was trilingual. And so I was like, oh, I like that. That was a little nod. Go do your Caribbean history. But
yeah,
she was scandalous.
That was part of like the slave revolt too, is like they took different populations and went to different parts, because DR is very like there's like a lot of colorism in DR. Like they don't want people, like a lot of people are mixed race. Because like when I go there, they think I'm from the DR because I look like stereotypically what they would expect people to look like. And that was like part of like the slave revolt that they were talking about in the book, how like the more rich privileged people went away, and there's like Santo Domingo and San Domingo, whatever the French pronunciation is. I did not take French. There we go. So like it was like that was all explained, but like you said, I wonder if people like know that DR and Haiti are actually like conjoined, and like there's always yeah.
And I think sometimes when you hear reviewers saying like I didn't learn anything, there were a lot of historical accuracy dropped in, tidbits of information. If you weren't really paying attention, you could learn quite a bit from the book.
Yeah, and I
So,
mean, like we learn a lot about the history of Haiti, growing up in school here, because like obviously the Haitian Revolution was a huge, had a huge impact on the entire region, and was a huge, but like they were the first Black republic in the Western Hemisphere. Like that was a huge deal. And they were, I think they became independent before the states. They were the first independent
they were
country.
like the first. Yeah.
Before the states in the Western Hemisphere, which is wild. So, I mean, you know, growing up, we learned a lot about that history. And so, like, to see this book kind of reflect that and to talk about it and to mention people like Henri Christophe and Toussaint and all these other people who we all know and who we've all heard about is really cool.
Yeah, that was like the most interesting part for me, because it felt like, oh, like this is putting context to everything I learned in like history class and making it like fun and interesting in the like fictional way. Especially because like all the other revolts that happened was because they heard of what happened, like the success in Haiti, and then they're like, oh, we can also do it too. So it was like good to see like the domino effect almost of like this is where it all started. And it was like the same, like that happened in history, but also like everything happened and then domino effect in this person's life as well. So it was like a parallel of like history and like this personal person's like life. So you mentioned
this is not a critique at all, but as you were just talking, Paige, I was thinking, you know what? Queen of the Conqueror could have like done the revolt and dropping in some of the could have done it as, let me get my thought out. I wish it would have done it as well as this book. Now, they're two different genres, right? But there were things that were similar, like talking about the revolution. I mean, in Queen of the Conquered, they were doing it simultaneously. But now as I'm thinking, I'm like, oh, this author could have done this like this, because then it would have been so much better.
I still need to read that one.
Yeah, I can give it to you. Just let me know if you want.
So speaking of other books, Saja's already given a recommendation with Where Do You Go, Bernadette? What other books do you guys like? Were there any books that sort of like reminded you that you were thinking of while you were reading this one? Like for me, I thought of American Street by Ibi Zoboi, because that also has like magical realism and voodoo in it. Yeah. So were there any other books that you guys would like, if somebody wasn't sure about reading this one, or if they read this one and they want something else to like jump off of?
So I was thinking about Here Comes the Sun, just because of like the vacation aspect of it, like thinking about going to this place for like this like kind of rose-colored glasses, but then there are all of these minutia type things happening in the background, and visitors getting to choose what portion of that experience they get to consume. So I was thinking about that a lot. But what I will say is, I'm so thankful this is the first book we've read that wasn't like trauma porn, like on top of it. Like it was so refreshing to just have like, I mean, it was still heavy for sure, but it was still, it felt like I didn't feel like I needed to take a nap and to decompress afterwards. It was like,
I will say, we also read Next Year in Havana, which was also not. That's the other book.
What?
Oh, and With the Fire on High.
Oh, that's true too. That's true. I feel like Next Year in Havana, though, there were things about it.
There were things about it that were very heavy. It's true.
Yeah. Did you read the second book? Because it's in my cart waiting for you. Not like my
no,
my
I
cart,
haven't
like
read it, but I have it, so we can read it. That's
okay,
we will read that.
I wasn't the biggest fan of that book, but I support you. If I had to recommend something though, I would recommend How to Love a Jamaican by Alexia Arthurs. It's a little bit popular. It's a collection of short stories, and a lot of the stories in here are kind of reminiscent to some of the themes that we see in Dear Haiti, Love Alaine. Like, I think there was one or two short stories where like they sent the child back to Jamaica for the good old fashioned Jamaican discipline and whatnot. So yeah,
which
a
is
lot of things in here
abuse.
would definitely. Well, yeah. I shouldn't laugh, but yeah,
Right.
that's
Inappropriate, right?
But yeah, some similar themes in this book to that. But my main recommendation really would be Wedgiego Bernadette, even though it's about white people and has nothing to do with the Caribbean. Like if you like the style and the tone
Mm.
of Wedgiego Bernadette, you'll probably like Dear Haiti Love Alaine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sad that more people haven't read it because it's a good book. It's a good book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
I
I
was
mean,
surprised.
if it was like Dear Paris, Love Cassandra, then everybody on BookTube would be like, "Oh
Yeah.
my god, this book is amazing."
But it's a beautiful cover. I love that she is brown. So yeah, like I'm
That was
sad.
something that was also discussed as well about like the colorism, because she mentions that her mom is like lighter and that she has the same complexion as her dad in the
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Did she reference her hair a lot?
Yeah, well, there's a whole introduction where she's like, "Hold on, I'm gonna tell you how to get a really good fucking twist out. Just wait, just a minute."
Yeah, she has like a
And
whole
she does give
section.
it. She does give you like that little like, okay, this is how you get the twist out. And I
As
was dying.
someone who always gets their hair braided, I was like, I feel your pain. And that's why I get my hair braided, because I can't deal with the humidity changing what I have prepared for hours for it to look like, not for it to stay that way.
It's true.
So
It's true. All right, so should we do some like wrapping up thoughts overall of the book? Who would you recommend it to? Like, if they like what kind of like person you recommend this to? I would recommend it to anybody who's looking for like a YA contemporary that's sort of more in depth. Like, it's like it has a light fluffy romance part of it as well, but it's more about like family and like seeing like Caribbean families and how like we all like group together despite distance, despite like sometimes treating each other horribly, like Celeste and like they'll come together in the end. So that's what I would recommend it for.
yeah, I think if you like contemporary,
yeah,
those were on page. And I think like if you have a sensitivity to dementia or onset early Alzheimer's,
definitely.
That is, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because there's a one part of the book, and I don't think I shared this with you all, where she didn't remember who Alaine was. That brought me back to I'm getting goosebumps. An experience I had with my grandmother, because she forgot all of the grandkids, but she remembered who I was. And so like when that happened, I was like, ooh, let me take a little break. But I thought like it, she had good days, she had bad days, and depending on where she was in being lucid, she could be really welcoming, or she could be like really hurt, not nice. So you gotta be mindful of that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it did remind me of my grandmother too, because she died of Alzheimer's like really quick, and it went really quick, really bad, and it went really bad really quick, sorry. So like if that's something that could potentially trigger you or scare you or even trigger like your own health anxiety and stuff, that's definitely something to be wary of. As for who I would like recommend the book to, I wouldn't say I would know who to recommend it to. I would recommend it like, if you're looking for something lighthearted and fluffy, but also really serious and heavy at the same time. I think this book does a really good job at like balancing both.
I feel like if you liked With the Fire on High, you would like this one. This one has more of a plot, but it has like the same sort of YA voice. I feel like, yeah.
I think this dug a little bit deeper in like the intergenerational life experiences. So I agree with you. If you liked With a Fire on High, you would like this. I think like if you read YA and you really want to diversify your reading experience, there's no harm in reading this, but be mindful of like the content warnings, which I don't think are in the book.
No, they're not. No, I had to write them down when I was writing my notes to make sure that I wrote them all. Okay, did we get any requests for songs? Because I noticed you asked for song requests on Twitter.
Let's look. I did get a notification, so hopefully it's a song. And people are watching.
He's just like, no, his
I mean,
internet's acting up.
yeah. Huh?
I said Saj's internet's acting up.
Okay. Let's see. Ooh, we got...
there Saj is. Hello. I thought you were leaving because you were like, you heard the song thing and you were like, I'm getting out of here before these idiots make me start singing again.
My Wi-Fi is really bad. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I like singing this song.
Back.
What song are we singing?
Nobody know.
No one.
I feel like one of y'all needs to sing this time. I've done my.
I played the music on my phone and let us dance.
That's not the same. That's not the same.
It's the same to me.
No, it's not.
Last time it was wasn't it the Tyga song last
Blessed?
Time? Yes.
Yeah, it was Blessed.
I'm still listening to that right now.
Me too. I still listen to that song. Yeah. It's very short though.
No one did any song requests.
Okay. So should silence be our exit?
No.
I feel like it's tradition. We need to like
oh my god.
Come on.
But like I don't
y'all wanna sing our national anthems?
Do I know my national
anthem? First chord of it. All hail the Virgin Islands, animals of the sea. That's as far as I go.
I know the full thing because I was forced to sing it every day of my life in primary and secondary school. So
well, you know, I'm a bit older than you, so you know I gotta make storage in this brain of mine.
Oh my god! I Google the lyrics for the anthem to be like, how does this go again? Because it's been a minute. But like as soon as I saw the first circle, I was like, oh yeah, I had.
Paige, isn't your album? Isn't your anthem on the replay?
It is. Thank you. 11-year-old is like, yes.
Can we not just make that the always the song we go out on?
Funny replay.
You know what we should do? We should come up with a Spotify Bashment Book Club.
Oh my god, yeah.
I like that idea.
We're gonna do it now. It's a plan. I love that she's just dancing to like
no music.
No music. This is my heart's going out.
Mr. DJ song on the replay. Mr. DJ. Would you turn the music up? All the girls on the dance floor wanting some more. And Mr. DJ, turn the music up. Hey, Mr. Hey, Mr. DJ. Tell me, turn the music up. I don't know the rest of the lyrics.
That's all you need to know. That was beautiful. And on that note, we will leave you. What are we reading next?
Yeah, that's
Serious Blooms at Night by Shani Mutu.
And the live show will be sometime in June because Amazon / whatever we order our books from needs time to deliver our parcels.
And we hope that everyone is safe wherever you are.
Wash your hands.
As I'm putting it in my face.
Mm-hmm.
You know, be safe. Stay indoors.
Mm-hmm.
You can wait for your haircut.
Truly, you can wait. Just braid your hair like I did. Like, just leave it.
I don't know what to, like my hair's. I don't know what to do with it anymore.
Your hair grow back? You did it grew back.
I shave my beard. That's what. Well, I mark my beard. I don't shave it. That's all I've been doing. But like the hair on the top of my head, it's just been growing and going all over. It's like
you can't tell. You're styling it well. All right, bye guys.